All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Lee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Heck, Manny, Goose, and special guest Gilbert Rodriguez. He's back, right?
That's right.
Is it your second or third one?
I think it's the second one.
I thought we did one with you and your brother. That was just an idea.
No, I think
like
we
a
did them
concept.
like back
Separate.
to back, but separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So
All right.
maybe my third, yeah.
Maybe.
It
Unstoppable.
was all Skype before, wasn't it?
It was through Skype. Yeah, now we have him live
That's right.
here at Miguel's Riverside Barbershop, 105 Market Street, Bristol, Pennsylvania.
That's right.
And he's traveling all the way up from North Carolina.
That's true.
Wake Forest.
Wake Forest.
What's your address? Just kidding. All right, Unstoppable. In this episode, the crew welcomes back special guest, investor, and entrepreneur, Gilbert Rodriguez. The crew talks about what it takes to be unstoppable. We cover topics that range from pressure, having an unstoppable mentality, failure, confidence, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Caterina Fake and Kirk Cameron. All right, if you're new, guys, thank you for joining us. Don't forget, we drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off with a definition from dictionary.com. Unstoppable. They define it as that cannot be stopped or surpassed. Unbeatable. Cool. All right, so there you have it. Gilbert, welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here.
Awesome. I know the last time we were here, you are an owner of a plumbing company called Pure Line.
Yes, sir.
Right? And we talked a lot about business and your business and
Yes.
how you got started, your background story.
Yes.
And last night, Gilbert was at our house. We're around the fire pit. I almost said campfire. We're around the campfire roasting marshmallows. And during that special time that we had, he was discussing, entrepreneurship outside of the plumbing business per se and investing, but more of like the mentality. So this time we have you on really talking about mentality and what it takes to be someone who's virtually unstoppable. All right, so with that being said, I found a dope article from success.com, and they have, it's titled, Do These 30 Things If You Want to Be Unstoppable, by Benjamin P. Hardy. So, number 1, don't think, know, and act. Don't think you already know what you have to do and you know how to do it. What's stopping you is the question by Tim Grover. Rather than analyzing and thinking, act. Attune to your senses and with complete trust in yourself, do what you instinctively feel you should do. What do you guys think about that? Number 1 of do these 30 things if you want to be unstoppable. Number 1, don't think, no, just act.
Oof.
Act.
That's tough.
That's tough for somebody who's, analysis paralysis. I'm a guy who overthinks it. Am I making the right decision? Am I doing this right? And a lot of times you're just frozen because you're overthinking it.
Yeah. I just recently took a test done by the Gallup called Strengths Finders.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys might have heard of it. Strength Finders. And what they basically get your 5 strengths. You take this test, you answer a bunch of questions, and they basically deliver your results of your top 5 strengths. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's more. I think there's 34 or something like that total. You can, for more money, you can buy the rest. But your top 5 they give you. And one of mine, top 5, was activator. They call it activator. It's basically someone who makes things happen. Mm-hmm. And that's very good, but we talked about this last night, where it's cool that someone can take action. It just depends on what action they're taking, right? Because you can have what we call a motivated idiot, right? Yep. For lack of better terms. I mean, yeah, you're motivated, you're taking a lot of action, but you're doing the wrong things. Right. And that's okay, I think, if your mind's right, and I think if you have some level of guidance, right, like a mentor or something. Otherwise, you're going to be that guy who keeps taking action and walking into the wall time after time again, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's just that point you made. I think a lot of people maybe get in their own heads, and so although you want to do something, you tend to kind of overthink it, and when you overthink it, you become paralyzed, and then everything else goes on around you.
Right.
And you set these barriers up mentally. You can have everything laid out in front of you, But when you start to think about it, well, like Manny said, you just become paralyzed. And I think that that's the first step into becoming unstoppable is, getting over that mental barrier to be able to put something into action. And sometimes it could be something so small, something that you start little with little goals.
Yes.
And this week I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to get to the gym at least 3 times this week, you know. And then before you know it, I think, me and Miguel kind of were talking about that too. It's you start small and you get over these mental barriers, to be able to become more successful and to be able to take on bigger goals.
I believe that as well. There's this huge movement when the law of attraction stuff exploded or whatever, and the movie The Secret came out. It's this concept of thoughts become things. That's fantastic, but the problem is there's so many missing parts to that equation, like action.
Yeah.
So thoughts become things if you're taking action on these thoughts, right?
Sure.
So then you literally had like hordes of people sitting in their rooms meditating, thinking that these things were going to manifest without any, communicating with anything else but themselves. I mean, it's very strange things. But action. All right, number 2, always be prepared so you have the freedom to act on instinct. Wow. Okay. Become a master of your craft. While everyone else is relaxing, you're practicing and perfecting. Learn the left brain rules in and out so your right brain can have limitless freedom to break the rules and create. What do you guys think about that? Always be prepared.
Yeah, like you said, like master your craft, like practice. I have this at the barbershop, a young kid, he's like 15 years old, and they're all into like the video games and stuff like that. He's also a wrestler. He wrestles in high school. Yeah. And I told him, I was like, while all your friends are trying to master the video game, you should be mastering wrestling. Practice that. Practice while they're doing that, you're mastering your wrestling skills. So when you come to the mat, like you've obviously have experience. They're just playing video games and they do minimum practice of their little craft wrestling. Yeah. If you practice while they're playing, you'll obviously like have more experience. You'll definitely develop more and faster than they would. That's like just trying to get ahead of the rest of your peers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, even to add on to that is just being, being disciplined. I mean, doing things daily, what everybody else does occasionally. Being able to get up and do things that, everybody else, it seems that it's not that important. Yeah. But I mean, you develop this discipline and this self-willpower to be able to do these things every single day, whatever that is, whatever your craft is, like Miguel was saying, or whatever you want to do best. You discipline yourself in the small things and you concentrate on that every single day, and everybody else only does that occasionally, Right. And so by the time you look back, you're a master at it,
right? Yeah, it's a crazy thing because I know when you separate yourself, when you can separate yourself. Here's what I find fascinating and funny at the same time is when you go back to hang out with those friends, it was like you see your growth in conversations, and it comes out and you're like, whoa. So it was almost like I had a growth spurt in the summer of my going into my junior/senior year, or coming out of junior going into senior year, and I didn't realize it until I went back to school and I saw how much taller I was than all these people, literally like 90% of the people. It's kind of that same concept. Sure. It's just mental growth. Right. And when you're having these conversations, you see how much, when I first got into personal development, it was kind of one of those things. I read one book, not that I walked around thinking I was like some yogi or anything, but in my mind, it was almost like freaky. It's like, holy smokes, I could see the level of growth. What was I doing all this other time? Sure. You know what I mean? All right, cool. Number 3, they have, don't be motivated by money or anything external. Having nice things is well and nice, but for you, it's never been about money, prestige, or anything else outside of you. Take these things away and nothing changes for you. You're still going to be pushing your personal limits and giving it your all. Give these things to you and they won't destroy you like they do most people. Wow. I just got the chills reading that. And it says that last sentence, give these things to you and they won't destroy you like they do most people. Is that what it does? You guys think that? You guys agree with that? It destroys most people being motivated by money or external? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think anything you do that's driven by money or anything else other than your actual passion, it's so much easier to either fail at it or give it up.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's not your passion.
Right.
You know, take my own life story, for example. I've been doing piping work since I was 17 years old, opened up a business. It's what I'm passionate about. Been all over the world traveling, doing pipe work. So to me, it's my passion. So when times get rough, when times get tough, when times seem
Enough.
dim,
I thought you were just rhyming. Sorry.
you know, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's true too, Jimmy Lee. But you know, you become so passionate that it's a lot harder to give up. It's a
Yeah,
lot. And
sure.
so when
No
it
one's
comes to
taking that.
money, it's a little bit different. You know, you can invest in, you know, if you're not a baker and you see an opportunity to bake cookies, you're not passionate about it. So you throw some money at it, you invest in it, and it goes downhill. You're like, okay, well, I lost whatever the investment is. But if you're really passionate about cookies, you're going to get into yourself and bake them yourself. I mean, it's just it's a mindset. It's a big difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Because at that point, it's an emotional investment.
Yes.
Along with whatever actual physical thing you put into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have your anchor. There's a I'm taking a leadership class right now called Great Beginnings, and in Great Beginnings, they ask you a question: what do you want your brand to be? Just everyone's own brand. No one has a business. You as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the words that I picked, so they gave you like a crazy list of all these words, and one of the words that I picked was significance. I want my brand to be something of importance, something that's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why they call people a change agent. That's like a great title that I would love to live by.
Right.
But something of significance, something that has like that, yeah, this is what I'm doing it for. Because as you're talking about, when things do get rough, I was not motivated by the money. Like, the money's going to be there. That's fantastic. And don't get me wrong, that stuff is fun, but that can't be the motivator. Sure. That's not a motivator. You know what I mean? And you have to have anchor. So at the end of the day, you will live that fulfilled, satisfied life because you know you're driven by something else when all else fails.
Right.
Number 4, never be satisfied. Even after you achieve a goal, you're not content. For you, it's not even about the goal. It's about the climb to see how far you can push yourself. Does this make you ungrateful? Absolutely not. You're entirely humbled and grateful for everything you have, which is why you will never get complacent or lazy. Oh man, I forget the author of this book, but it is the best title one of the best titles I've ever seen or heard of. And I read the book, but it's called Happy Discontent. And the entire book was about being grateful for what you have and happy for it, but discontent in a sense that you want more in a good way. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You want more for yourself. You want to use your resources. And listen, there's no way in hell we're here to go clock in and clock out of work, clock in and clock out of work, and then that's it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. You have to have meaning behind all this stuff. And when you do live a quote life of significance, you're not going to be satisfied per se.
True.
But you can be happy. And this book title, Happy Discontent, obviously the title explains it all. But I that was one of the first times I felt almost like relieved. Like, because people were like, dude, okay, so then where does greed come into this, right? And you're like, oh, dude, that's greedy. You're greedy. You want it all. And I'm like, and I felt bad about thinking that I wanted it all. I'm like, oh, I guess that's greed. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I read this book, it's like Happy Discontent. I'm like, that's the mindset. It's a mindset. It's not that, oh yeah, give me. Greed is almost like I want it all and I don't want anyone else to have it. You know, that's like a whole other thing.
You're gonna fail at that.
Big time. All right, number 5, always be in control. Unlike most people who are dependent on substances or other external factors, you are in control of what you put in your body, how you spend your time, and how long you stay in the zone. Act based on instinct, not impulse. Just because you could doesn't mean you do. And when you do, it's because you want to, not because you have to. But yeah, always be in control. That goes back with preparation, I think. So if you're prepared, you're in control. And again, we talk about external things that we don't have control of, right? So life is going to happen. But if you're prepared and you're in control, these life things are now inconveniences and not, meltdowns and catastrophic events.
Yeah, I think I know for me, when I first started my business, I was so hard up on the specific goals that I want to accomplish. I had set certain goals. I had set certain marks that I wanted to hit. But you soon realize that life happens. And so with life happens, so does life happen. It happens in business as well, where things change in business, where you thought you were going to focus your business on a certain product or a certain line or a certain service. But then as things change, if you don't change and roll with it, you set yourself up for a mental letdown. So, and not really realizing the benefit of rolling with the punches in business. So it's, for example, if you wanted to set a goal to make, I don't know, pizza, and all of a sudden you get more requested to make something different than pizzas. Then in your mind, you're like, well, I had a goal. I had a goal to make 1,000 pizzas this week, but now, I'm going to do this now.
Right.
So I think with business and control and all of that, you kind of roll with life, and you roll. And the same thing in business, you kind of set new goals. You had certain goals, you set new goals, but at the same time, it doesn't allow your mind to stay stagnant. You kind of roll with it. You set new goals, and I think you don't set yourself up for a mental breakdown or a mental failure. Going, man, I didn't accomplish this. But open up your eyes to what else you could accomplish because of a certain change. In business or whatever, in life too.
Right. Yeah, we talked about this too last night. That actually happened to me where this year we're releasing a spoken word album, the second, one off of the Motivation Files. The first one came out in 2015. So Motivation Files Unleashed, the entire project was done.
Yeah.
And we're talking about release dates, August, September, doing all this stuff. And in the background, since that project was done, I was able to focus on the lifestyle brand, the Blessed lifestyle brand. And so I started, toying around with designs. I had designs since, earlier this year, but that was kind of like my way out of everything else. So it was like my downtime. I was playing around with designs, doing all this stuff. So I had one of the designs. I had a dude mock it up, whatever. I got a t-shirt done, right? I posted on social media, and that was the end of that. This thing just took off like wildfire. Meanwhile, we have this massive project in our hands. We're like, let's hold off on this project. Let's do this Bless line and keep it moving with that.
And that's exactly that's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
You adjusted,
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's crazy is if we didn't do that, we're now doing music videos for the albums dropping in December. We have a single dropping in October and a single dropping in November, and the entire project is dropping in December. If we didn't do that, the Blessed brand wouldn't even be in these videos, to a point where I actually have a track on the album titled Blessed.
Yeah.
And it totally reformed the whole thing. And that was just me just going with it. I'm like, I'm not stopping this.
Because that's the thing we always talk about, is being flexible along with everything else. Is
Yeah.
that you know what you kind of want either way along the way, but all the stuff is still within your wheelhouse that you wanted to do anyway. So it's kind of like readjusting as you need to see fit, even though it may be something different. But yeah, you're going where opportunity goes.
Right. Exactly. All right, cool. So number 6, be true to yourself. Although 70% of U.S. employees hate their jobs and only 1 in 3 Americans report being happy, relentless, and unstoppable, being purge everything from their life they hate. Wow, that's very strong. Have the self-respect and confidence to live life on your terms. Wow, what do you guys think about be true to yourself?
I think we had a whole talk about that. Be authentic, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was that word authentic. That's funny. Because I was telling the guys that before, I thought it was like someone's like, oh, be you, be you. I'm like, what does that mean? And then one time I heard someone say, be your authentic self, and it struck.
It's really important, being authentic, being yourself, because anything you do that involves other people in your business or anything for that matter, it's an extension of who you are.
Yeah.
You create a culture, you create a circle around you that it's an extension of who you are as a leader, who you are as a business owner, how you treat people, being authentic, and that trickles down all the way down to the bottom. And I think that's majorly important, and how your business is viewed, how it's perceived. It's all, and even if it's perceived and not in a good way at times, that's still an extension of who you are.
Yeah.
So which just it just goes to show that nobody's perfect, you know, and mistakes happen and things like that, and it's how you react to it that brings you back to being authentic and who you are, so that, you know, it's extremely important for that to happen, for sure.
Agreed.
And it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, that if you don't have like if it's not something that you really truly care about, then it's not going to be the best product you're going to put out anyway.
Exactly.
So you're not going to really care about it, and it's going to fall to the wayside, and it's going to be a mediocre product, if anything.
Exactly. Because the people that you have around you are going to see that you're not passionate about what you're
Exactly.
trying to sell.
Absolutely.
So,
All right, cool. So number 7, never let off the pressure. Gilbert, being a plumber, owner of Pure Line Plumbing out in North Carolina.
that's right.
The quote that comes with number 7 is, pressure can bust pipes. I know you've dealt with this stuff before, but it can also make diamonds, by Tim Grover. Most people can handle pressure in small doses, but when left to their own devices, they let off the pressure and relax. Not you. You never take off the pressure off yourself. Instead, you continuously turn up the pressure. It's funny because this entire year, my 2 words that I've been focusing on, Gabe knows I have it written on my dry erase board. I write it and then I erase it. I write it, is apply pressure. And that is just like literally being relentless. Regardless of what's going on, who's doing what around you, just keep going and going and going and going, to the point where it's like, all right, I think you did enough. Like, yeah. And then on top of that, go again. Just when you think you did enough, keep going, keep going. But yeah, just never let off the pressures. I think that's pretty straightforward. Number 8, don't be afraid of the consequences of failure. Easier said than done, but I get it. Sure. Most people stay close to the ground where it's safe. If they fail, it won't hurt that bad. But when you choose to fly high, the fall may kill you. And you're okay with that. To you, there is no ceiling and there is no floor. It's all in your head. If something goes wrong, if you fail, you adjust and keep going. That's a fantastic point to make. But again, don't be afraid of the consequences of failure. Yeah, of course. So when you are taking action, this kind of goes back to what we were saying before. Hopefully, you have like a mentor or some level of guidance that you're not berating life with all your actions, and yeah, you're probably going to hit the wall or something. Everything's not going to be a success. Should you be afraid of that? I don't think you should be afraid of it, but there's a reason why you're afraid of it. And I think that's just that's a good thing. To me, when I see someone who's nervous or scared or something, in my mind, they care. But yeah, I guess the consequences of failure, I guess it's just a way of thinking. So I agree.
It should be calculated. It should be a calculated risk. If you can live with a calculated risk. If you're just kind of running amok and flying by the seat of your pants, it's one thing.
Right.
But if you've taken a calculated risk, it's easier to kind of swallow that pill, even if it is a failure.
Right. I agree. All right, number 9, don't compete with others. Make them compete with you. Oh. Most people are competing with other people. They continuously check in to see what others in their space, their competition, are doing. As a result, they mimic and copy what's working. Conversely, you left all competition behind. Competing with others makes absolute zero sense to you. It pulls you from your authentic zone. So you zone out all the external noise and instead zone into your internal pressure to produce. Wow. Mm-hmm. There was this weird concept that I got stuck on. It was like a mental block that I had with competition. I started reading these books and they're telling me not to be competitive. And it was like the most bizarre thing to me because I feel like naturally we are competitive. Even if someone's like doesn't play sports, is beyond sports. I'm just saying like you want to win, right? Mm-hmm. No one goes out and is like, I can't wait to lose today. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to win. There's a level of competition. Obviously, everyone's gauge is different. Mm-hmm. But it was this block thinking. It was just when this whole greed thing came in, and I was just learning a lot about life and about myself. At this specific time, this time frame, it was like a 6-month time frame, and they're talking about competition, like you shouldn't want, because in competition, you're in some way you want to beat somebody, and that brings now negative to you. And the law of attraction says what you put out, you could receive. So that's where that whole thing came from. But I wasn't understanding. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the same thing. Like I want to have X, Y, and Z, and they're saying that it's kind of like a pie. So if you're taking so much piece of the pie, you're not leaving anything for anyone else. But the concept that I got over was saying that that's not true. There's actually a limitless supply, right? So then I don't feel bad about how much I'm making a year, for example, how much I'm taking from the industry for whatever industry that I'm involved in, that there's crazy amounts of supply. There's no limit to this. And that one jump, I didn't care about competition. Not that I didn't care in a sense that I don't want to be a winner. It was in a sense that I don't care what you're doing. I'm basically competing with myself. And it wasn't a negative thing towards anyone. I just feel like I'm in my own league, and every one of us should feel that way.
That makes sense because especially with the barbershop, people come up to me, they're like, oh, how's the shop doing? I'm like, it's good. They're like, there's other shops around. How's the competition? I'm like, there is no competition. Not in the sense that no one can compete with me.
Yeah.
I'm not competing with anyone.
Yeah.
I don't see there's a special niche for each shop. Everyone has their specialties. Some shops master certain things that I don't master, and so I don't see no competition. And there's enough for everyone in my industry. There's enough for everyone. I don't compete with the shop up the street. You know what I mean? I'm in my own spot. I know what I gotta do, and I know that my shop's successful anyway. So why should I compete with the next person?
Yeah.
If anything, I just would be me, like you said, stay in your own lane and just be a pedestal for them. Like let them see what I do.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Number 10, never stop learning. Ordinary people seek entertainment. Extraordinary people seek education and learning. When you want to become the best at what you do, you never stop learning. You never stop improving and honing your skills and knowledge. Your unparalleled preparation is what gives you power. No one else is willing to pay the price you've paid. Gilbert, we just got done talking about last week. You're in New Mexico for...
It was a plumbing conference to get educated, to learn more about the craft, to learn more about what we do, the upcoming trends, and that's I'm really big into that when it comes to education. I've gotten my master's licenses in multiple states. Some tests were 18 hours, some tests were 16 hours, some tests were 12 hours. But I think it's to kind of go back to what Miguel was saying about competition. I think some competition is a little healthy, but at the end of the day, it's really not competition in the sense of, I know how hard I work, and I'm not gauging my successes off of another company. I don't know what their culture's like. I don't know what their passion is like. I know what my passion is like here at Pure Line and what we do. And so I think education is really, really important, not only for yourself, but when you're put in a position to lead other people, you've got to have it. You've got to learn. Again, like the kind of point that I made before is doing things daily that others do occasionally. Meaning, I get up and I open up a code book. Probably the most boring thing you can possibly read, but I do it. Why? Because I need to be sharp. I need to know. I need to understand it for my own people that work at Pure Line. So it's learning is everything. It's powerful, very, very powerful.
Yeah, I think you touched on something super important too, that I want to kind of piggyback on, was talking about the culture, and even just us around here, the people that we have on the podcast, and it's kind of surrounding yourself with other hungry individuals who want it, being their own dreams, just as bad, right? But never stop learning. I just don't understand anything other than that, right? So like, even if for me, let's just say you hit like the pinnacle of your industry and you are what you are, even if it's for yourself that you felt that you hit everything, all these life goals or whatever, what happens like in turn, where you could be a teacher or you could be a coach to your kid, and it's something that they're passionate about. So then you get to refocus and then relearn something. I feel like there's something adventurous about that or fascinating about that, right? I don't know, like let's just say your kid's like into astrology and you never were. I mean, you just did it for whatever you had to do for school. But then all of a sudden you dive into this just to kind of go on this little journey with your kid. I'm not saying everyone's doing this, but you're learning still. It's kind of giving you another perspective on life in general, because the laws of success are the same in every industry. I remember growing up in high school and playing sports, and they always wanted us to play more than one sport, because they wanted you to be, dimensional when it came to seeing how you reacted, teamwork, all kinds of things. Like, yeah, shooting a ball into a hoop is totally different than hitting a ball with a bat. But there was elements, especially leadership, when it came to gathering the team, being a team player, even seeing a ball differently, seeing different angles of different things. It gave you as an individual a different perspective on the sport that you're really good at.
Right.
So they would, and a lot of times they also want you to stay in shape all year. But I remember there's a lot of good basketball players or football players that they just made run track or do something else that got them involved. But yeah, number 10 is probably one of my most favorite. Never stop learning. Number 11, success isn't enough. It only increases the pressure. For most people, becoming successful is enough. However, when you're relentless, success only increases the pressure to do more. Immediately following the achievement of a goal, you're focused on your next challenge. Yeah, because it's a journey, not a destination, right? I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time. Number 12, don't get crushed by success. Most people can't handle success, authority, or privilege. It destroys them. It makes them lazy. When they get what they want, they stop doing the very things that got them there. The external noise becomes too intense. Mm-hmm. That's wild. Especially the authority one. Is there anything worse than putting a badge on someone who's just going to take it to that next level for unnecessary reasons?
Yeah.
Just that ego. You put a badge on an ego and just forget it, dude. Oh my goodness, the most obnoxious thing you'll ever see. You can't handle it. Some people can't handle it. Dude, they abuse the living daylights out of that stuff. I mean, I've seen people, with the authority wasn't even that big, and they just ran with it to a whole other level. Like, what is going on? It's bizarre, but it's true. And honestly, like, think about it. Like, how much? What would you do if you honestly had everything you ever wanted right now? Right? Like, how would you actually act? Okay, for example, let's just say you had so much money, you start buying all these properties all in your own little town, right? Like, you literally own everything. Then what? You become the mayor? Then what? You don't know. I'm serious. And you just keep it. Just this wild thing. Like, what is the point of this? Are you trying to get somewhere? Or
Right.
You want the town named after you? Like, what do you? There's this odd thing about power. They talk about money, power, respect. The power one, I think, is the biggest of all, and no one even I think gives much thought to it.
Well, what about the opposite? When you've reached your destination and all of a sudden you become so complacent, you don't do any of the things that got you there. You finally get to the position where you always wanted to be at, and all of a sudden all your your principles and the morals that got you to that said point is done. So the guy that you wanted to be in that position, is now a totally different person. I've seen that, and that's not fun.
That's probably about as ugly as it gets too.
Yeah, I think it really goes down to who you surround yourself with, to be able to have some checks and balances around you. Unfortunately, when you have that power trip where you get to a certain spot and you feel like you're, like the king, and you're treating people a certain way, you're going to get lonely really quickly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when that happens, you start to lose people, and people will start leaving or whatever the situation may be. And then that power that you thought you had, you've just as fast just lost it. And so I think what Manny was saying with when it comes to that, you're there, right? And all of a sudden you become complacent, and you kind of think to your head, okay, I got everything I ever wanted. Now what? That's when the people around you go, hey man, what's going on?
Right.
And then, but I think there should always be some type of a really good balance with being hungry, at the same time understanding that life relationships with people and just relationships in general mean way more than money. Sure. Money is gonna money will come and go, but the way you treat people, your circle of friends, the people that mean most to you are always going to be there. And you cultivating those relationships on your rise up to wherever you're going, when you get up there, those people that were with you when you had nothing are going to be your checks and balances. So when you get up there, they're going to be like, like, for example, I'll be like, Jim, what are you doing, man? Why'd you talk to that person that way? Just because they're in this position or in that position. Then you're going to have kind of like, oh, man, am I doing that? Yeah. So I think with people around you and just smart individuals and people that know you for who you are is going to keep you in check. And I think that's one way to kind of counteract that.
Did you struggle with that ever on your way up in growing the business?
I still feel like I'm really still growing the business. I'm not there to a point where I feel complacent. If anything, I feel such a responsibility for the families that I'm being a leader to. Mm-hmm. So, we talked about pressure earlier in the show. You know, where I feel pressure is to make the right decisions. That I'm being viewed upon to make the right decisions, mm-hmm. so this family can pay their mortgage, can pay their car payment, that their kids can go to a private school, that, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Sure. So it's all encompassing, the education and, so no, I don't feel like I'm there where I'm complacent. If anything, it's almost like a responsibility to make the right decisions for the people that are working. And that's where the whole leadership, the managing style, all of that comes into play. Being able to go into the trenches still with my guys and work with them. If I need to talk to them, I visit them and I actually work with them to have a conversation. So those are the things that keep me, checked when it comes to that.
Very good. All right, cool. Number 13, completely own it when you screw up. No blame, no deception or illusion. Just a cold, hard truth. When you mess up, you own it. And as the leader, you own it when your team fails. Only with extreme ownership can you have complete freedom and control. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, is there anything worse than denying the truth? And at the end of the day, there it is. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, dude, it's still gonna stare at you forever. Sure. But yeah, I think there's a level of maturity that comes with that too. A lot of times, I see grown men point fingers for something petty. There's not even nothing that's even significant. Yeah. And just will never take the blame. Or blame something, man. It could be I wore the wrong socks today, and they just messed up the whole database by one false entry, and he's gonna tell you that it's because of his socks. Just the blame game is just, I don't know. I think that's a maturity thing, and you could be 78 and still have that issue. Mm-hmm. So that's the dangerous part. It's
different too when people say they use certain ways to describe the situation as I did really well. Right, there's a vocabulary like, okay, I'll follow you. When things go downhill, it's like, I'm a true manager. Be like, I take responsibility for that. Coming across that, even those kind of words really get you every time.
Yeah, that's true. It's a funny thing. It's just this little weird path that we run by, because I think it has to do with, well, obviously it's ego, but it also has to do with reputation. And I feel like deep down, no one wants to be known as the screw up. Right. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. And so we start like, oh, that wasn't me. Like we start dishing it off to someone else. Yeah. So I mean, it's understandable to a certain extent. Right. But I think where this is talking is things that are much more heavier than the little stuff. All right, number 14 of 30. Do these things if you want to be unstoppable. Let your work speak for itself. Talking is shallow. Anyone can do it. It's easily replicated. It's low value. Conversely, deep work is rare. It's done by people who are focused and working while everyone else is talking. Deep work is so good it can't be ignored. It doesn't need words. It speaks for itself. That's my favorite part right there. It speaks for itself. Let your work speak for itself. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right? In this, whatever it is, this leadership training that I'm taking, a lot of people take pride in their name, right? And so the only reason why I say that is because they're talking about they're talking about work ethic and it's kind of, let your work speak for itself, kind of the same thing. But I'm telling you, probably about 85% of the people said, my name's going on that project. I'm doing the best that I can. And it was a very prideful thing when your name gets stamped on something. That's your product, right? I mean, you have people literally walking heads, right, of your work that the world can see. Gilbert, you have, with the plumbing work you do, your brand, and not only you, what's crazy about owning a company is it's what your employees are representing you. So it's their work that's reflecting back on you and your company. And going back to, not pointing fingers, if they do something wrong, you have to be obviously willing to take that hit. Not for, obviously, that's a conversation you have with them, but when the company they did the work for, they don't want to talk to that plumber. They want to talk to you, right? Exactly. So it's one of those things. So when people do take that so serious, like my name's on that, my name's stamped on that. That to me, that's just a person who cares, who wants the best. And honestly, at the end of the day, I could just appreciate it, even if their work sucks. At least they did it with their intent, or their intentions were there. All right. Well, at this point, we are going to actually split this episode in two. The conversation got so good, so interesting, that the length actually stretched out to be enough for two separate episodes. So we're going to have this part one that you just listened to. Thank you for listening. And next week we'll release part two, episode 117, part two, featuring Gilbert Rodriguez. We appreciate his time, that we want you guys to actually listen and capture the knowledge drop. There's many gems in both episodes. So we're splitting this in a two-part series, and we just want to thank you guys. Tune in next week to get part two. We appreciate you. Bye. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by the Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.